Hey, what's up, everybody? Going to be discussing the recent news about AstraZeneca's that drug maker pauses its COVID-19 vaccine trial for safety review. We're going to kind of give you my 2 cents and thoughts on it. I'm going to show you kind of what I would expect to occur here. All right. So right off the bat, I'm going to show you what I expect to occur. So what they saw and noticed was transverse myelitis, and we'll go into that in a little bit more detail briefly in relationship to vaccines. We've had government-funded studies that do show a direct causal association between vaccines and transverse myelitis, and I'll review that abstract of that research study with you as well. It is a common, very, very common court-awarded vaccine court. So if you go to U.S. federal court, U.S. Court of Federal Claims, and go to vaccine court, and you go to opinions and decisions, I believe it is, and you go there, and then you just put in the keywords transverse myelitis, and guess what? You'll get a ton of hits. Again, some millions of dollars, quadriparesis, encephalopathies, paralysis, amputations, millions of dollars in compensation if you go to the U.S. Court of Federal Claims, vaccine court. So let me read you this real quick. And so AstraZeneca halts the vaccine trial to investigate its participants' illness, facing surges in cases. Britain plans, they go through all this. Of course, let's push the vaccine, Let's make sure people are still more scared of the virus than the vaccine. They go through unexplained illness in one trial. The company said participants sometimes become sick by chance, but such illness must be independently reviewed to check this carefully. Working to expedite the review of the single event to minimize any potential impact on the trial timeline. This is all quoting from this article. And again, this article comes from New York Times. So committed to safety, we are committed to safety of participants in the highest standards of conduct in trials. So they're going to let AstraZeneca's scientists review whether this person's transverse myelitis was caused by the vaccine. But again, if you go to the NIH, so I'm going to click on here, National Institute of Medicine. So here you have National Institute of Medicine, transverse myelitis fact sheet. And I can scroll down to what causes transverse myelitis directly from the National Institute of Health website. Immune system disorders. Transverse myelitis is strongly associated with autoimmune conditions, which we understand. And if you want more information on transverse myelitis being caused by vaccines, just grab this medical textbook, Vaccines and Autoimmunity by Schoenfeld and Levin. So here we go. NIH, National Institute of Health, says post-vaccine autoimmune phenomenon can cause transverse myelitis. So other viral infections, bacterial infections, cat scratch fever. Okay, we got to sing the song, right? If we're going to talk about what causes transverse myelitis and cat scratch fever can cause transverse myelitis, you got to go, ow, like the old rock song. Cat scratch fever. All right. Every time the Buckeyes would kick a field goal after a touchdown, back in my glory days at college, all right, I didn't play football for Ohio State, but when we'd hang out and watch football games, every time they kick a field goal, we played cat scratch fever. Come on, throwback, a little bit there. Ow! And that's what we did all the time. We'd go, me and my buddies actually had the old cat scratch, hairdo, where they put like the stair steps on your hair. Yeah. So NIH admits vaccines cause transverse myelitis. Now, I want to show you, I pulled this up. It's a very common thing they do. If you read a lot of vaccine science that says vaccines are safe, what you'll come across is something like this right here. All right, so let me go to, there's page 4. Here's the title, a controlled trial of 2-component acellular, a 5-component acellular, and a whole cell pertussis vaccine. So this was a safety trial to say that vaccines are safe. But watch this. Watch what they do and listen to this. Okay. 205 children who moved out of the study area, 116 children, 1.2% of the trial who did not complete the follow-up for other reasons. We didn't get to know what are the reasons why these children didn't follow up. So that's bogus science there. One child died of sudden infant death syndrome 1 day after the first dose of the whole cell vaccine, and another child died of the same syndrome, sudden infant death syndrome, 27 days after the first dose of the 2-component vaccine. 2 deaths, one occurred due to progressive convulsions and renal failure and liver failure, and that eventually led to the child's death 7 months after the vaccine. Another child died of bronchiolitis, inflammation of the airways, which is ironic because, pertussis and, the vaccine's supposed to be protecting them against respiratory infections, but child dies of a respiratory inflammatory disorder. That was 14 months after, so you could possibly argue that not related, but yet now we're finding that severe respiratory inflammation and different conditions, autoimmune issues are coming from vaccines. But after the third dose of the DT vaccine, after these 4 deaths were judged to be unrelated by the vaccination. So a child dying the day after the vaccine, judged unrelated. SIDS is a condition with unknown cause, they say. But I can show you twins. I think I now am up to around 3 or 4 twin studies of twins who died simultaneously the very same night after vaccinations. So just so you know, you cannot cause something kills the children. If it happens simultaneous, sudden infant death syndrome doesn't occur the exact same moment in time unless something actually kills them. If you read law journals, you'll find out that it is well established that you can't have identical twins even dying exactly the same night. And I think it's now up to 4. I think I'm up to 4. I may be up to more than that, but I found several different, and they all correlate back to vaccines. So, but here's what I'm saying. Here's what I'm saying AstraZeneca is going to do. AstraZeneca's own researchers are going to be allowed to assess whether the vaccine caused the transverse myelitis. The NIH admits transverse myelitis is a side effect of vaccines. So how are they going to assess whether it's caused by the vaccine when the trial going on right now is actually to assess whether the vaccine causes severe conditions? So they're going to, we doubt it's related to the vaccine, but we're going to check into it. There is no objective study test to be able to determine whether the vaccine actually caused this or not. Again, hopefully they didn't, though. I guarantee it. They should have been doing autoimmune panels prior to this vaccine on all other participants and looking at the autoimmune antibodies generated from the vaccine or because of the vaccine, both short and long term. So AstraZeneca's vaccine, the researchers are going to be able to assess whether transverse myelitis, this demyelinating nervous system inflammatory disorder that causes paralysis oftentimes, is related to their vaccine. And so do you think the employees at AstraZeneca are going to get paid bonuses if they find out that their vaccine, if they determine the vaccine caused a serious condition, that then would mean they would have to pull the vaccine? Because even for the small number of participants, this would be a ridiculous number of people developing transverse myelitis. Even if one person in the trial developed it because of the vaccine, the small number of participants means there's a huge number of people when they roll it out to the world population, tons. And transverse myelitis rates are going up. Ironically, so is vaccine rates. But they're going to do exactly what they've done in prior vaccine research studies to say that vaccines are safe. How in the world do you say that, that child dying the day after the vaccine, it was unrelated, though we can't tell you what SIDS is related to, caused by? We can't really tell you. And that's one of the things. If you go to the NIH website again and you go, what causes it? The exact cause of transverse myelitis and extensive damage to the nerve fibers, spinal cord is unknown in many cases. So how do they know that something doesn't cause something if they don't know what causes? How science can do this. Vaccine science only, though. But anyways, there you have it, folks. This is what's going to happen, is they will simply write it off, just like they did in this safety trial on the DTaP vaccine, saying that, oh, the kid's dying the day after the vaccine or within a month, and then developing progressive convulsions, neurological conditions, and then liver failure. Oh, we don't know what caused it, but we just know that it wasn't the vaccine, even though the vaccine was the thing that was done just prior to your child dying. That's how they do it. All 4 deaths were judged by the researchers, by the vaccine manufacturer employees, to be unrelated to the vaccine. Yeah, the child died. We don't know why, but these neurological conditions, this brain damage, all these issues. Yeah, we don't know. Definitely not the vaccine. Some convulsions occurred within 48 days of the vaccine, 5 hypotonic hypo-responsive episodes, 24 convulsions, 3 invasive bacterial infections occurred, life-threatening events such as 11 serious chronic illnesses, 3 malignant tumors, 2 cases of hydrocephalus, 2 cases of cardiac failure, 1 neurological malformation, 1 case of Kawasaki syndrome, which is an inflammatory condition that has similar immunological effects or cytokine profiles to multi-system inflammatory disorder that is known to be caused by vaccines as well. Kawasaki disease and transverse myelitis having similar profiles. Suspect Lee's disease and psychomotor retardation. Those are all listed. And again, they say, we judged them, all those things. Even though this trial is to look at the safety of the vaccine, they basically just, any injury, they just say, we believe it was unrelated to the vaccine, therefore the vaccine is safe, even though the vaccine group had major neurological cancer, death. They're dying at higher rates. They're having way more neurological events, but they're just not related to the vaccine, so the vaccine's safe, even though if you wanted your child to live, then they shouldn't have been vaccinated. They would have more chances of living. But that's vaccine science for you, folks, and I believe they're going to do the exact same thing with AstraZeneca's COVID vaccine. Again, they said it was COVID, or the COVID vaccine. Following the COVID vaccine, the individual developed transverse myelitis, and some will say, well, oftentimes this syndrome that affects the spinal cord is often sparked by viral infections. Well, we understand by flu vaccine research studies that alternate viral infections can occur at higher rates, including such with the DTP vaccine and other vaccines. In HPV vaccine, we've seen increases in those vaccinated versus those unvaccinated, increases in alternate viral infections. Maybe it's a distortion of the immune system. AstraZeneca's vaccine, known as AZD 1222, relies on chimpanzees adenovirus that has been modified to carry coronavirus genes and deliver them into human cells, generally thought to be harmless. Guys, you want to know the best way to cause a virus to jump species from monkeys to humans, or from like bats to humans? Just go ahead and genetically alter it to infect humans. That's what they're doing with the vaccine. It's just like, wait, somehow, randomly, a virus that was in bats jumped species and started to infect humans, and that's why we're ending up with this pandemic. Oh, quick, grab a monkey virus that doesn't infect humans, and let's go ahead and genetically modify it to infect humans. That'll save us from this animal-derived virus that somehow jumped species and now is infecting humans. Let's grab another animal virus and genetically modify it and use it to protect people. Literally, this response right here should be the response of everybody in society right now. We should all just be sitting here saying, what? What are you thinking? Please don't inject a genetically altered virus from another animal into us because we're dealing with an animal virus that somehow jumped species. Even though researchers were genetically modifying a coronavirus, bat coronavirus, years before, and had patents on it and everything like that. And yeah, it's brilliant. Health comes from genetically modified viruses, folks. We're here, the food pyramid is messed up. We need to, at the peak of the pyramid, we need to have genetically modified animal viruses need to be injected into human beings for our health benefits, along with eating grains. No, you shouldn't. Horrible advice. I mean, it's just insane. So, but they're going to let AstraZeneca do this, but AstraZeneca, here's an article, New York Times. $520 million AstraZeneca for settlement cases over marketing of their drug. Illegally marketing psychotic medications, antipsychotic, antidepressant medications that then kill children. Yeah, we're going to trust them to tell us the truth about how safe their vaccine is. Hey, pill pushers, another great oldie but a goodie. Great article. We go through another instance. AstraZeneca staged trials. They staged their trials and then used it to make it and lie to doctors about the safety and efficacy of their drugs. Holy cow, they just staged a trial. Maybe they're doing that now. Nonetheless, after Crestor's debut, AstraZeneca used ads featuring a voiceover by the centenarian actor Patrick Stewart of Star Trek: The Next Generation. And said this: when Crestor performed in head-to-head test, its lowering effect was clearly the best. Even though that was a lie and the FDA rejected the approval of that statement, they still did it because our government allows drug manufacturers and vaccine manufacturers to lie to us all. And then doctors think it's just a good idea to continue prescribing the drugs that liars create and sell them. Because if you look at the DOJ's website, Department of Justice, they got anti-kickback lawsuits. So they kick back money to doctors and they got found guilty of it. And they're not legally allowed to do that, but they still do that. That's funny. Not really that funny because people die. People die because they lie. People die because drug makers lie. All right, how drug makers sway states to profit off of Medicaid drug cost rise, leading to tough state budget choices. Oh, so they lobby to your state government politicians and sway them to pass laws that cost the state more money, and big pharma makes more money by buying off our politicians. That's a great article to read too. Go ahead and read through that as well. But again, AstraZeneca mentioned in there as well. So, yep. So there you have it, folks. Drug maker AstraZeneca sees transverse myelitis in one of their participants, which the rate of one in however many of their participants there is quite a bit, statistically speaking, since transverse myelitis is a relatively rare symptom or problem in the general population. But if it happens there, we know it would be huge numbers if it was given to the world. So let's go to Journal of Neurology, and this was published in April 10th of 2018, Development of Transverse Myelitis After Vaccination, a CDC and FDA Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, VAERS. And this study conducted looking at VAERS reports from 1985 to 2017. If you Google that, you can find it. Go ahead. Yep, it's right there. See that? Okay. So, and mind you, if you then further go down the rabbit hole, you'll find out that VAERS, they estimate that less than 1% of actual vaccine injuries are reported to VAERS because it's a voluntary reporting system. I have a medical physician out at Bach who's a friend of mine, and guess what? He attempted to report a vaccine injury that happened to one of our military members, and guess what? When he went through the process, they tried to deny it 3 times. They even called him and said, "Why do you believe this to be a vaccine injury?" He said, "It happened basically right after the vaccine. The military member never had this condition, and suddenly after the vaccine has it." And they tried to convince him not to report it. The reporting system is to pick up risks that are associated with the vaccine that weren't found in prior studies. So you're not supposed to say, is it caused by the vaccine? Are you sure it is? If you're not, you shouldn't report this horrific incidence and injury after a vaccine if you don't know it's, but we don't have research that says it is. That's why we have VAERS, to pick up the possibility of causal association. But don't report it to VAERS, because you shouldn't report it to VAERS, because we need to know that it's caused by the vaccine before we report it to VAERS, even though VAERS is actually only there to pick up the possible association between vaccines and related condition injuries. Yeah, that's our government, folks. That's VAERS. So this is way underreported. But listen to this. Conclusions. Although the reporting rate of post-vaccination transverse myelitis is in the range expected in the general population. Now, they say that, and most people will read it like this. They'll say, oh, so it was basically the same rate as the general population? Well, then there you have it. There was no increased rate due to transverse myelitis wasn't at higher rates in the vaccinated versus the general population. So therefore, the vaccine doesn't cause transverse myelitis. Wrong, folks. The general population is vaccinated. The general population is vaccinated, and at the same rate of transverse myelitis is seen after vaccines as it is in the general populations. Well, if the vaccines protected them against severe illness and injury and viral infections that cause supposedly transverse myelitis, then you should have seen a lower rate in the vaccinated. But that wasn't. It was the same. So what if the general population's rate is completely made up of the vaccines? Anybody ever thought about that? Yeah, that explains it. So we'll go on. The unbalanced distribution of these cases within the first 6 weeks after vaccination suggests that the association between vaccination and some cases may not be coincidental, meaning causal. Work in progress to determine association of individual vaccine types and their course of transverse myelitis. And again, folks, if you look up aluminum-containing adjuvanted vaccines in transverse myelitis, there's definitely plenty of evidence. And the NIH, National Institute of Health and Neurological Disorders, admits vaccines cause transverse myelitis. So, again, just keep an eye out. You can pretty much predict once you get a real handle on the way the marketing and the fraud and the lies and what criminals do, you get a handle on that, you can kind of see what they're going to do. And you can use the research and you can see it. So this is definitely, they can't prove that it's not caused by the vaccine. We can prove with the science available that vaccines do cause transverse myelitis. We can go to the U.S. Court of Federal Claims, and you can scroll through, folks. You can scroll through. Let me get it on here real quick. You can just scroll through. So you can just scroll through. Just scroll through all those cases. Woo! It keeps going and going and going and go. This is just transverse myelitis, vaccine injuries. So in U.S. Court of Federal Claims, it just keeps going and going and going and going, and holy cow, it just keeps going. It just keeps going and going and going, and it's still going, still going, still going. Transverse myelitis after the flu vaccine. Flu vaccine's acquired. Tetanus vaccine after flu vaccine after the meningococcal vaccine, transverse myelitis after the Tdap vaccine, transverse myelitis after another flu vaccine, influenza vaccine, acute disseminating edema, so that'd be acute disseminating encephalomyelitis, after the Gardasil and hepatitis A vaccine. Oh, the hepatitis A vaccine was found to cause autoimmune antibodies, an autoimmune phenomenon by the NIH admitted to be a factor in causing transverse myelitis. So, all right, folks, so there we go. Hopefully that was educational for y'all. But yep, I will save those when I get the articles up on thewilddoc.com. Subscribe to the email campaign there. Like us, share us on Facebook. Check us out and check the YouTube channel out as well. But yeah, so there you guys have it. I'm looking at any questions. It looks like you guys just kind of tune in and listen to the FDA is run for former drug company executives. Nothing shady there. Yep, pretty much. It's a revolving door. You work for the government, then you work for a pharmaceutical industry, then you work for the government again. Absolutely. So a lot of people tuned in today. It seems like my husband has type 2 diabetes. What happened months after mandatory MMR. He is in great shape, not overweight. They have even said his numbers don't make sense to have elevated A1C. We even told them it is listed on the inserts. They wouldn't do anything to see if it was related. Message me and let me know how we can get help for the injury. Lifelong damage he will have to deal with. Any help would be helpful. Hey, Melanie, I will try and message you I'm going to comment here, and you try and message thewilddoc.com or go through thewilddoc.com and just request a consultation. I can help your husband hopefully heal, get well. I deal with a lot of vaccine injuries. I've helped with a lot of people dealing with vaccine injury, and there's a lot of good things we could do for your husband. So there is hope, but you have to recognize the factors that go into the development of that serious condition in somebody who's otherwise relatively healthy and then gets a vaccine that is known to initiate autoimmune disorders. So we can absolutely help. So, and I am 100%, if you're working with me, I'm willing to get you as much of the research documentation that I have available to me, that I've saved, that I've read through, that I've highlighted. If you're going to court and you're fighting that battle, I will assist you in that process. So just let me know. Sorry, they're quiet. There we go. But, all right, let me check out if there's anything else. Transverse myelitis has similar symptoms to polio. There is a little bit of detailed differences, I believe. Like you'll see transverse myelitis in MS and optic neuritis, different things like that. So if somebody already has an autoimmune condition, they're more likely to have transverse myelitis because it is an autoimmune related condition. If you really kind of dive in there too, if you look at Cleveland Clinic, they mentioned that high levels of immune protein IL-6 in the spinal fluid of transverse myelitis. That's also in interleukin 6 is elevated in autistic disorders and can be a objective measurement of severity of autism as well. And then you look into things like the MMR vaccine research and you show that prolonged sustained IL-6 is a immune marker post-vaccine. And then you look into animal trials on vaccines and you show that animals, for sustained protection in the herd, that if they have higher sustained IL-6, which should go up and fall during infection, it should not stay up and stay there. Otherwise, you are signaling to the body to promote inflammation and damage. So the reality is you don't want sustained, but they relate it to better protection against a virus that they're vaccinating the animals for if they have sustained higher levels of inflammation in their system because of sustained IL-6. So we know that IL-6 related to transverse myelitis, there's your biological plausibility, there's your biological mechanism by which a vaccine causes interleukin 6, which is strongly associated with being a causal interleukin in the development of severe spinal fluid and neurological inflammation and damage. So there you have it, folks. But again, if you want to help these people, how do we work on lowering that spinal neural inflammation, calming down the immune system, getting things back into homeostasis? Any connection with vaccines and childhood apraxia of speech? That is one I don't think I've studied hardcore. I'd have to look into it, and I'll do my best to find that out. So I love you all. I appreciate you all. I'm going to take a lunch break and go back to consultations with my clients. But again, please share this information, share this truth. Again, most of the stuff I've read you, the titles of those research documents, you can pause it. You can go back and Google it, get them on hand, even before I post them on thewilddoc.com. But again, going out through email, you always get alerted when I post videos on thewilddoc.com. And then underneath those videos on those pages, you will see the listed documents, the studies, the references, the NIH website that admits vaccines cause transverse myelitis. So let's not let AstraZeneca and Big Pharma get away with lying about and just brushing this severe injury aside, which would then lead to massive thousands of people developing transverse myelitis as a result of their vaccine if it comes to market. So let's push back against Big Pharma. So love you all, appreciate you all, share the truth, don't just like it. It's the only way we save lives. I'm the Wild Doc.